You know how some people are cat people and some people are dog people? Well, I am a rat person, so it probably won't surprise you to learn that my all-time favorite book is one from Terry Pratchett called The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents. This book is kind of an anomaly when it comes to Pratchett entries. It technically takes place in his Discworld universe, but it's one of his few standalone novels. And other than two characters, it has a totally original cast, and it's one of his only books written for children. However, in my opinion, it's also one of his darkest, most existential novels. Yes, this is a story about a talking cat and a gang of talking rats, but it is by using this very silly framework that Pratchett drills into the heart of some of the most unsilly parts of the human experience. Using rats and cats as a fantastical mirror, Pratchett confronts us with some of humanity's worst tendencies. By reframing the symbols and stories of history, he examines the true cost of growth and progress. And as these animals learn to be more than their bestial nature, Pratchett urges us, as humans, to do the same. Terry Pratchett once called this a very serious book, which seems odd considering it dedicates a number of pages to a tap-dancing rat named Sardines, but he also believed that humor has the unique capacity to open our minds to new ideas. He claimed that laughter can get through the keyhole while seriousness is still hammering on the door, and I think that this book may be one of the best demonstrations of that fact. So whether or not you, like me, are a rat person, I think that this book has a lot to teach us about being human. By the way, this video will contain spoilers for the entirety of The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents, and if you have not read this book, go and read it now. It's not long, the audiobook is pretty good, and it's only like 6 hours long. There also is a movie that was made of it that is it's worth watching for the basic plot points, but I don't think that it has anything on the thematic points of the book. Now, that being said, I am going to be talking through the entire plot of this book through this video, so if you have this on while you're doing dishes and you have no plans of ever reading this book, proceed as you were, I will catch you up. But first, I want to catch you up about this video's sponsor, ZocDoc. This summer is going to be kind of crazy busy for me, and in all that chaos, it is so easy to forget about the important things like my health. I already hate making appointments, I despise getting on the phone, and dealing with my insurance is a complete headache, so I have been putting off doctor's appointments for a while. I have terrible seasonal allergies, and that means that it's kind of hard to figure out when I'm actually sick, but I did get sick this spring and summer, and so it was very nice to be able to get to the doctor using this video sponsor, ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. From primary care to dentistry, eye care, skin care, and nearly everything in between. And there's no need to call doctors' offices and wait on hold either. ZocDoc lets you do everything online. Using ZocDoc, you can filter for doctors by insurance, location, and specialties, and see reviews by real, verified patients so that you can choose the best and most convenient care for you. ZocDoc has more than 150,000 healthcare providers across all 50 states, and they make it easy to book in-network appointments for whatever type of care you need. And when you found the doctor you need, you can click to see their actual appointment openings. And ZocDoc helps you get appointments fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking, and you can even make same-day appointments. From primary care to dental health, eye care to urgent care to mental health, and more, it's the one-stop shop for all of your healthcare needs. Your health matters, and ZocDoc can help you get the care that you need. Just go to ZocDoc.com/JessOfTheShire to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That is ZocDoc.com/JessOfTheShire to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. Thank you so much to ZocDoc for sponsoring this video. The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents opens with a line from Robert Browning's 1842 poem The Pied Piper of Hamelin, describing the ruin and chaos brought upon the village of Hamelin by a plague of rats. Rats! They fought the dogs and killed the cats and... But there was more to it than that. As The Amazing Maurice said, it was just a story about people and rats. And the difficult part of it was deciding who the people were and who were the rats. Our protagonist, the aforementioned amazing Maurice, is a street cat that is forced to confront the problem of personhood when he inexplicably gains the ability to speak. He's not the only one to come down with this affliction. There's also a whole clan of talking rats who become enchanted by eating magical wizard trash from the university dumpster. Since he's the only talking cat, and other cats no longer provide stimulating company, Maurice reluctantly falls in with the rats, and with the help of a musician named Keith, he's gotten them all working a Pied Piper scheme. The book is essentially an adaptation of the Pied Piper myth, a story pulled right from the dregs of the Cauldron of Story. Originally based off of a murky historical event, the tale tells of the village of Hamlin, a town infested with rats. The Pied Piper, a colorfully dressed musician, comes into town offering to get rid of their rat problem for a sum of 1,000 coins. Desperate, the mayor agrees, and the piper plays his pipe, hypnotizing the rats right out of town and into the river. But when it comes time to pay the piper, the townspeople change their tune. Without desperation nipping at their heels, there are suddenly a dozen reasons that they should not pay their bill. Perhaps, they even suggest, the piper himself guided the rats into town in an elaborate hoax. The people of Hamlin refuse to pay, and in retribution, the piper plays a tune that coaxes every child of the town out of their doors, following after him as he disappears into the mountains, never to be seen again. This is a uniquely dark fairy tale. Much in the tradition of the classic Grimm fairy tales, there is no clear-cut hero or villain to this story. The tale condemns the villagers for their failure to make good on their promises, but it also doesn't let the piper off so easily either. He was, it could be argued, manipulating the people of Hamlin in their time of need, and hypnotizing 130 children to their death is hardly heroic behavior. Rather, the story acts as a lesson in human nature. Humans will manipulate others when given the chance. They will lie, and they will certainly suffer the consequences of their actions. This isn't even really a story about rats or pipers at all. It is a treatise on the worst parts of human nature. Pratchett centers the rats and the piper in this retelling, facing them with the same questions that the original story presented. The formula of their little scheme is quite simple. The rats head in and wreak havoc on a village, swimming through their fresh cream, stealing their cheese and prancing across the streets, and then Keith comes in to the rescue, offering to play his pipe. He guides the rats away, and they split the cash on their way to the next town. Maurice, as the brains behind the operation, gets to sit back, watch, and reap the rewards. Now you might be asking yourself, what a clan of rats and a cat need all this money for? And for Maurice, it is mostly selfish. But the rats have begun to dream, and they realize that money might help them achieve their dreams. They may have begun their days of cognizance, clumsily naming themselves things like ham and pork, and nourishing based off of the labels on the trash they found around them, but now they've turned their newly minted minds towards larger aspirations than trash heaps. They found a little illustrated book called Mr. Bunsey Has an Adventure that seems to depict a paradise. In the world of Mr. Bunsey, all animals from snakes to humans to rats wear waistcoats and little hats, and they have charming little homes. They take tea with each other and go on long strolls, and the human farmer likes and tolerates them, even the rat. The changeling rats, who have only ever known other species as adversaries, come to look at Mr. Bunsey as a kind of sacred text. It is not, however, an unproblematic one. Yes, Mr. Bunsey Has an Adventure was the cause of much discussion among the changelings. What was it for? Was it, as Dangerous Beans believed, a vision of some bright future? Had it been made by humans? The shop had been made for humans, true, but surely even humans wouldn't make a book about Ratty Rupert the Rat who wore a hat and poison rats under the floorboards at the same time. Would they? How mad would anything have to be to think like that? The changeling's idealistic charge into sentience is led by Dangerous Beans, a frail blind rat who acts as a kind of philosopher-preacher. Just as they've developed a trap disposal squad to go ahead through the rat tunnels and find and disable the rat traps, so Dangerous Beans thinks ahead for all of them and helps them handle all of these treacherous new ideas. Since gaining sentience, everything has changed for these rats. Now that they know light exists, now that they can think of it as its own entity, now that they know how to light a match, the darkness has become something outside of the light. They didn't even know that shadows were there until they had the light, and now they're beginning to recognize the shadows that exist within themselves. The changelings have begun to dream when they sleep. They begin discussions about the big rat underground. Is he real or not? They start asking questions like what happens to them when they die. Not their physical body, but the bit of them that's inside their bodies. The older rats bristle at this sort of thing. Back in their day, the big rat underground was a given, and the only inner bits that you had to worry about was that green wobbly bit, which you should avoid eating if you are to be devouring your dead friend. But the young rats have been utterly taken by all this thinking business, and even the old clan leader, Ham and Pork, is useless to resist it. Dangerous Beans is compelling, and he has his little blind eyes set on Mr. Bunsy's paradise. With the help of his assistant Peaches, they've even begun listing out a kind of manifesto, a set of claims and rules to govern their new rat society. They spell out the idea that the clan must cooperate or die, and that one should not whittle where you eat. It's all the important stuff. The rats come to be a kind of new parallel version of human evolution. It's humans if we had a fresh start. We watch as the changelings discover many of the aspects of sentience that we now take for granted because we've had them so long. They learn what it means not just to be a community, but to be an individual within a community. The first rule laid out in Peach's manifesto was an illustration showing one large rat made up of smaller rats. They are more than just rats. They are, each and every one of them, a rat, with a soul and a body and all of the complications that come with that. Rats, in so many ways, are very similar to humans, and Pratchett presents the changeling rats as a more pure version of humanity. It's a kind of idealistic mirror, a way to show us how things perhaps in another world could have been. But for a more relatable version of humanity, we can look to Maurice. Rats are creatures of community. They are pack animals, more or less. But cats are generally much more solitary. They're independent animals. They know very well that they are individuals, meaning that when Maurice gains sentience, his journey is really that of discovering that he is not the only person in the world. He begins the novel remarkably self-involved. He's obviously manipulating Keith and the rats. He knows very well that Mr. Bunsey is just fantastical drivel, and that there is no special ratty heaven island. But it benefits him to work with others and to manipulate them, and so he does. But as the story proceeds, and Maurice spends more and more time with his companions, realizing that they too have dreams and hopes just like he does, he begins to act less and less like a cat. Maurice is now a cat with a conscience. He now waits to see if his prey can talk before he eats it, and he finds himself announcing this fact to the other rats defensively any chance he can. He hangs on to his great secret, that he ate one of the changelings, and that was how he gained sentience, to the very end of the novel, something suspiciously like guilt overwhelming him. It's right between the idealistic perspective of the rats and Maurice's cynicism that I think we find a fair reflection of the way that humans are. But the worldviews of the rats, Maurice, and even the human boy Keith are put to the test when they set out for one last scam before they retire the act for good. But the town they find themselves in, Bad Blintz, is different. They arrive to find the town completely empty of food, apparently because of their rat problem. The rat catchers are offering crazy payouts to anyone who can find a rat, and the people are so hungry that Maurice is being eyed up as potentially their next meal. But in spite of this allegedly terrible rat infestation, the changeling rats are unable to find any normal rats in the town. While investigating, Keith the musician finds himself in the company of the mayor's daughter, a girl named Melissia. Melissia has grown up on a steady diet of fairy tales, and she sees the world as a fairy tale. After demanding to know if Keith is secretly a prince or a warrior, and being disappointed to find out that he's actually just a rather pretty good musician, she leaps at the chance to be a part of their story, even if it is a little too cutesy for her taste. Melissia and Keith break into the rat catcher's hut, picking the lock on the door with a hairpin, obviously, where they find an astonishingly large stock of food and a very curious lack of dead rats. The problem is, of course, the live rats. The rat catchers have hundreds of rats trapped in tiny cages, so starving that they've resorted to cannibalism. These rats are strong, tough, and furiously frightened. As the changelings explore the town, they stumble across these cages as well, and the sheer mindless wave of fear infects many of them, stripping away their sentience and sending them flying off in a blind frenzy. Keith and Melissia are taken prisoner by the rat catchers, where they learn that the two of them have been taking and selling the town's food and catching and breeding the local rats for dogfights. They've bred the strongest rat with the strongest rat until they have nothing but violent beasts on their hands. The rat catchers manage to get a hold of Ham and Pork, who is the leader of the Changeling clan, and they throw him into the dog pit to fight. Ham and Pork, who was very reluctant to accept the change that they've all undergone, is horrified to see how vulnerable the ordinary rats have allowed themselves to be. If only they would communicate and work together, they would have a chance against the dogs, but fear and simple-mindedness have driven them apart. Ham and Pork is saved from the dog pits by Darktan, the head of the trap disposal squad. Darktan defeats the dog and manages to escape, only to be caught in a trap. In the jaws of the trap, Darktan has a near-death experience. He's never really been into all of the philosophical stuff, but when he's beyond the veil, he sees the light at the end of the tunnel, but he feels himself called back. He avoids the scythe of the Grim Squeaker, but his near-death experience cements him as both a literal leader and a spiritual leader in the clan, whether or not he wants that responsibility. Ham and Pork dies of his injuries, but only after handing the mantle of leadership over to Darktan. One of my favorite aspects of the rat community that Pratchett builds is their individuality. Through the guidance of Dangerous Beans, they're all after generally the same goals, but they all have their own complex and different levels of belief in both the spiritual and the real. They aren't all blind followers and believers, and I think that the way that Pratchett allows the older changeling rats the time and space to navigate the changes of their intelligence is just really beautiful and really real, and it echoes a lot of the ways that I have seen humans interacting. Melissia and Keith are rescued by Dangerous Beans and Peaches, but Melissia sees the copy of Mr. Bunsey that they're carrying, and she mocks it for its sentimental tomfoolery. She calls it fiction, and between that realization and the loss of so many of his companions to the fear, Dangerous Beans snaps. He runs off into the sewers despondent, and Peaches chases after him, dropping their copy of Mr. Bunsey and their rule book in her haste to find him. Melissia and Keith confront the rat catchers, switching out their bowl of sugar for rat poison, and telling them about it only once the rat catchers had both drunk the poison in their tea. The rat catchers are horrified, but Keith has been with the rats long enough to see things as they are. "This is inhuman!" shrieked Ratcatcher 2. "No, it's very human," said Keith. "It's extremely human. There isn't a beast in the world that would do it to another living thing, but your poisons do it to rats every day." Of course, it turns out that the rat poison that Melissia slipped them was actually just laxatives, but the point remains. They learned that the rat catchers, in an attempt to be admitted into the Rat Catchers Guild, created a Rat King. The term Rat King refers to a phenomenon in which multiple rats have their tails tangled and knotted together. I am about to show images of real Rat Kings on screen, so turn away for about 15 seconds if you don't want to see that kind of thing. There are many historical examples of rat kings, both reports and preserved samples, but the mechanics on how rat kings come about are a bit murky. It's been hypothesized that it can come about from rats sharing really filthy nests. Their tails start to get stuck together due to dried waste, and when mad animal panic comes into the equation, this waste turns into knots and tangles up. Or perhaps during cold winters, water or mud could freeze and stick the tails together, starting the process. But it is also possible that not every rat king was natural. In The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents, rat kings are expressly made by human hands as a masterpiece to prove your rat-catching prowess. It is used as a brutal example of senseless human cruelty. Outside of the book, we can't say that rat kings never happened naturally, but I think that it is fair to say that some of them have been created as display pieces for museums. But whatever the reality, the rat king is a potent, almost ironic symbol. After all, why is it called a king? Researcher Kevin Rowe wrote, "Rodents stuck together could not survive long and are probably in agony and distress until they separate or die. A rat king would be a horrible ball of animal suffering. Nothing about it evokes a sense of kingship." Beyond being a description of this phenomenon, the term originated as an insult for the Pope and other abusive autocrats. It was seen as the epitome of the lazy extortionist, these rats grown fat with age, sitting on each other's tails until they tangled together and rendered them immobile, only able to be sustained by younger, free rats choosing to bring them food and support their despotic reign. It is a symbol of individuals swallowed into a dangerous collective by indolence. So it is in the book, both the symbol and the real phenomenon. The rat king made by the rat catchers takes on a mind of its own, calling itself Spider, wielding a terrible power over the minds of rats, Maurice, and even the human rat catchers. It was Spider that put the idea for the food stealing and rat breeding into the rat catchers' heads. It has been the voice in the back of their minds urging them to do evil. Spider has arisen from the cruelty of human beings against rats, and it seeks other rats for its cause, to pull them in and increase its power and wreak the same cruelty back onto humans. Spider tracks down dangerous beings, and it sees him as a worthy ally, as someone that can control the others as Spider does. Spider explains, "Man made me for sport. Tie the rats' tails together and watch them struggle. But I did not struggle. Together we are strong. One mind is as strong as one mind, and two minds are as strong as two minds, but 3 minds are 4 minds, and 4 minds are 8 minds, and 8 minds are 1. One mind stronger than 8. My time is near. The stupid men let the rats fight, and the strong survive, and then they fight, and the strongest of the strong survive, and soon the cages will open, and men shall know the meaning of the word plague. Yet you are interesting. You have a mind like mine, that thinks for the many rats, not just the one rat. We want the same things. We have plans. We want the triumph of rats. Join us. Together we will be strong." Dangerous Beans asks Spider what would become of the weak rats in this new world, the rats such as himself, who have only their minds and spirits to defend them, not physical might. When Spider explains that those other rats will be eaten because that's the way it's always been, Dangerous Beans retorts, "You see, you just think for many rats," he said. "But you don't think of them, nor are you, for all that you say, the big rat. Every word you utter is a lie. If there is a big rat, and I hope there is, it would not talk of war and death. It would be made up of the best we could be, not the worst that we are. No, I will not join you, liar in the dark. I prefer our way. We are silly and weak sometimes, but together we are strong. You have plans for rats? Well, I have dreams for them. Spider mocks Dangerous Bean's dream, his little Mr. Bunsey world, saying that to be a good rat isn't wearing a little vest and getting along with other woodland animals. Being a good rat means fighting the hardest, eating the most, stealing the best and finest things, rising to the top no matter who you must step on. If rats want power, they must embrace what it is that makes them powerful, and despoil even more, ruin ever more, cause more death and pain. Dangerous Beans, shaking, terrified, alone in the dark, tell Spider, "Once we were just another squeaking thing in the forest, and then humans built barns and pantries full of food. Of course we took what we could, and so they called us vermin. And they have trapped us, and covered us in poison, and somehow out of that wretchedness you have come. But you are no answer. You are just another bad thing humans made. You offer rats nothing except more pain. You have a power that lets you enter into people's mind when they are tired or stupid or upset, and you are in mine now. Now that I have smelled you, I know you. You have the smell of the bone rat about you. Even though my body is shaking, I can keep a place free from you. I can feel you running around in my head, you see, but all the doors are closed to you now. I can control the shadows inside, which is where all darkness is. I am more than just a rat. If I am not more than just a rat, I am nothing at all." Terry Pratchett recognizes how potent fear is, and how quickly fear and hurt can become rage. And although Dangerous Beans may be blind, as he says, he is not so blind that he cannot see the darkness. The true darkness that only exists within. He and his rats have fought hard to become individuals, and no offers of power or violence will strip that away from them. There can be a better way. Spider replies to this proclamation with a new, terrible burst of power and agony, one that overwhelms everyone around them, including Maurice. And it is here that we see Pratchett playing with the balance between instinct and intellect. Intellect has carried his characters thus far, and has allowed them to withstand the power of evil, but sometimes instinct has its place. With his new conscience stripped away, his newfound soul swallowed up by the raw animal power of Spider, Maurice's inner cat is released. And if cats do one thing, they eat rats. Maurice attacks Spider, ripping apart the knot of tangled tails, biting, scratching, and killing the physical form of Spider, sending his spirit flying into the wind. It is only when one of the rats speaks, when Dangerous Beans cries out in pain under Maurice's claws, that Maurice comes back into himself, just long enough to die. He wakes in death to see the grim Squeaker, the bone rat, on his way to the body of Dangerous Beans. He pounces on the grim Squeaker, ready to kill him, and is pulled off of his prey by Death himself. Death gives Maurice a stern talking to, telling him to cease attacking his coworker, and also telling him that he's here for the cat's next life. He did start with 9 of them, after all. Maurice hurriedly tells Death to take 2 lives and be on his way. 1 life for Maurice, and 1 for the little blind rat that dared to see clearly enough for all rats. Death tells Maurice that he's behaving in a rather uncat-like manner, and soon both he and Dangerous Beans are waking from their death-like sleep. But now that the rats have been dealt with, it's time for the humans. The townspeople call in a real rat piper, and Keith must challenge him to a rat piper off. Anyway, there is of course another scheme involved. Keith challenges the piper to a competition to determine the superior piper. The changelings lock up the cages of the normal rats and plug their ears so that when the piper plays, not a single rat comes out. But when it's Keith's turn to play, the tap-dancing rat Sardines leaps out onto the street into a full routine in front of everyone. With his position as the best rat piper secured, Keith allows the piper to join him in guiding out the formerly caged rats, sending them into the river, where of course they can swim, because rats are actually quite strong swimmers. The villagers, none the wiser, think that the rats have been killed, but they turn around to find another crowd of rats waiting for them. Rats that can talk, with a very clever cat to negotiate for them. With Maurice's help, the changelings are able to show the humans how they might benefit from living symbiotically with a clan of talking rats. Pests wouldn't be a problem anymore, and they would have a built-in tourist trap. For the low price of simply not killing the clan and accepting them into their society, they could sell rat-chewed woodworking projects. They could have a rat parade. They could sell rat merchandise. The townspeople agree to this, and a new peace is settled upon. It's not quite Mr. Bunsey, but as Dangerous Bean says, maybe Mr. Bunsey wasn't entirely true or false. Maybe the fiction of Mr. Bunsey acted as a map. The presence of rats and humans go hand in hand, no matter how much humanity seems to hate this fact. We have the same diets as rats, virtually. We have complementary sleeping schedules. We prefer the same climates. More so than cats or dogs or any of the animals that we actually want to have around, rats have truly been with humanity since the very start, since the agricultural revolution at least. And since the start, we have been at war with rats. And as much of a rat sympathizer as I am, I do get it. Rats can hurt people. They can make them sick, they can cause property damage, and our relationship with rats is not always a symbiotic one. It is oftentimes more parasitic on the rat's part. And it's just not for me to say if the violence that we've done to rats is justified, but I will say that our relationship with them has been one fraught with violence. The poisons that we use kill rats slowly and painfully. The things that we've done to them in laboratories are sometimes necessary, and sometimes truly disgusting. We have done reprehensible, unforgivably inhumane things to rats, for the sake of mere entertainment, for film. The horror of the amazing Maurice and his educated rodents comes from a fear of consequences. Just as the Pied Piper took his due one way or the other, how terrible is it to think that the violence we've done against even just rats who only ever wanted to live and to eat and to be, what would happen if that violence, that senseless violence, could come back to face us? What would it look like if humanity were truly called to account for all the wrong that it has done? As Dangerous Bean said, Spider was just another thing that humans created. But for Pratchett, the violent promises of Spider are not the answer. A revolution that replaces the old system of oppression with new oppressors is still oppression. Violence dealt back against the violent is only more violence. Spider's plan for rat kind would only cause more pain for rats. That is why Dangerous Beans and Darktan and Maurice must come up with a new way of being. While talking with the head rat, Darktan, the mayor of Badblint, says, "You could have poisoned our wells. You could have set fire to our houses. My daughter tells me you are very advanced. You don't owe us anything. Why didn't you?" "I asked myself that too," said Darktan. "And I told myself, what good would it do? What would we have done afterward? Gone to another town? Gone through all this again? Would killing you have made anything better for us? Sooner or later, we'd have to talk to humans." Violence truly only ever begets more violence, and our enlightened rats are able to see this clearly. More clearly, perhaps, than humans ever do. And perhaps we, the generally human readers of this book, might be able to learn a bit from this fantasy world. Pratchett says of this story, "Far more beguiling than the idea that evil can be destroyed by throwing a piece of expensive jewelry into a volcano is the possibility that evil can be diffused by talking. The fantasy of justice is more interesting than the fantasy of fairies, and more truly fantastic. In the book, the rats go to war, which is, I hope, gripping, but then they make peace, which is astonishing. The peace that the rats manage to find is not necessarily a pretty one. Without the possibility of Mr. Bunsy's paradise, the rats are going to have to come to terms with a lot of the messy contradictions that make up humanity. How is it that we can write stories about Ratty Rupert the rat who wears a hat, and poison rats in our own home? How is it that we can write grandiose stories about the dangers of war, and we can laud the importance of community as we allow terrible violence to occur in our communities every day? How is it that we keep making these laws and regulations, even knowing that these rules will be broken, and our hopes for the world will be shattered? As they spell out the rules for rat kind, Dangerous Beans proposes a ban on the killing of other rats. But supposing you have to, Peaches said, still staring at the drawings. Then you have to, said Dangerous Beans. But you shouldn't. I do think that this is some of Terry Pratchett's most salient advice. The world is messy, it's imperfect, and really terrible things happen every day. But the answer to that cannot be putting our hands up and saying to hell with it. We need to make those rules, even knowing that they sometimes may be broken. We need to hope that things will get better, because that's the only way that they'll have space to actually get better someday. Many of Pratchett's books delve into the nature and purpose of stories, but this book does it particularly well. Melicia's character is all about stories within stories and how you choose to tell them. The rat's journey to understanding the nature and purpose of fiction is one of the pivot points of this tale, and it also makes us, the readers, think about the stories that we choose to read, the lovely fictional fables that have formed the people that we are. Are these stories lies? Are they entertainment? Are they escapism or delusion? Terry Pratchett guides us in the right direction at the end of the book. The village strikes a beautiful harmony, rats and humans living together in peace, bygones long gone, and the people that visit the village are entranced by it all. Everyone says, "How perfect, how well organized, how amazing." And then, most of them go back to their own towns and set their traps and put down their poisons, because some minds you couldn't change with a hatchet. But a few see the world as a different place. It's not perfect, but it works. The thing about stories is you have to pick the ones that last. Stories are not real. We can't trust that they're going to fix everything. A lot of people, most of people, will never truly learn anything from stories at all. But if even a few people, through the art of fiction, learn to see the world as a different place, these stories might just be worth telling. The rats of this story are fictional. Real rats don't talk that often. But there may be an uncomfortable amount of truth to the educated rodents of this book. Take, for example, metacognition. Metacognition is essentially thinking about thinking, and for a long time, metacognition was considered one of the unique hallmarks of human intelligence. It was a defining feature that set us apart from animals. But it has been determined that, among other animals, rats may possess metacognition as well. When presented with a test involving determining the lengths of sounds, rats were found to decline questions that they weren't sure about. It's like walking into a pop quiz and knowing that you're unprepared. According to this research, it seems like rats know what they know and know what they don't know. That sounds a lot like metacognition to me. Rats are also believed to experience empathy, another one of those things once thought to be reserved for human intelligence. They ran an experiment in which 2 rats were put in cages. One rat could roam the cage freely, and the other rat was trapped in a tube that could only be opened from the outside. It was found that that freely roaming rat almost always learned how to free that trapped rat as quickly as possible, and once they knew how to open the door, they would do so immediately to relieve the other rat's distress. They tested this under a number of conditions. They made it so that the trapped rat would be released into a different cage so that the roaming rat would not be rewarded by rat company, and they still found that the roaming rat freed the trapped one as soon as possible. They tried rats that didn't know each other, and that trapped rat was still freed. They even gave the roaming rat the option to open up their buddy's tube and free them, or to open a container of chocolate chips. Rats do love chocolate chips. But more often than not, it was found that they would go and free their companion and then go for the chocolate, even if it meant that they would have to share that treat with their friend. By these measures, it would seem that the rats were genuinely motivated by nothing but a desire to end the pain of the other rat. You could probably excuse this as being the result of some other factors, but effectively it does seem like empathy to me. And it makes sense. Empathy is a community-building emotion. It's how we connect to other people. And so why couldn't that exist for other species as well? Now you should go ahead and skip to this timestamp if you don't want to hear about rat death at the moment, but there has also been research done to prove that rats may have the capacity to hope. In the infamous drowning rat experiment, which happened back in the 50s, rats were put in tubes of water and left to swim until they became exhausted and drowned. Most rats under these conditions tended to last about 2 minutes. In the next round, rats were placed in the water tubes again, but right at the moment of drowning, they were plucked out, held, and allowed to recover. These rats were then placed back in the water, where after having been rescued once, many of them would keep swimming for 60 to 80 hours before the exhaustion took them. They had only survived 2 minutes before, but with the hope that they might be rescued by someone, they could last infinitely longer. And I don't know if you'd call that hope. It could just be survival instincts. It could be trust or something like that. But you cannot deny that it doesn't look an awful lot like the way that humans look at the world. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I am a rat person through and through, just to admit my biases. When I was 7 years old, I was telling my teachers that I wanted to be a rodent when I grew up. I'm still working on that one. I'll let you know how it goes. I've owned pet rats for like 5 years. I have 5 of them now. 2 of them are perfect little babies right now. They're quite young and I love them. Every night I gaze into their little beady eyes and I watch them grow up. I watch their personalities. I hold them as they die. And it is just such a miracle that such a beautiful little creature could trust me as much as they do. Even if they bite me sometimes too. But being a rat person, I am often confronted with the bizarre contradictions of keeping something as a pet that most of the world regards as vermin. I have to catch and release the mice in my own home, knowing that they might very well die when I release them, because I can't have mice eating my food, and I do that even as I go out and buy food specifically for my own rats to put in my pantry. I spend thousands of dollars at the vet on an animal that people also spend thousands of dollars to kill. It is a weird, messy, oxymoronical way to live, and I don't think I found anything that captures this uncomfortable duality quite like The Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents. It leans into that sense of weird, and even if it doesn't have a solution for it, it does make me feel less alone. But I love this story not just for the humanness that it bestows upon rats, but for the rattiness that it bestows upon humans. Because if we have been able to determine that rats are capable of things like hope, empathy, and even thought, it may be possible that humans are capable of this too. It might be possible for us to also become more than the animals that we started out as. Like Darktan and Maurice, we might be able to grow and to look at the darkness outside and to know the darkness inside of us all the clearer. Whether it's Mr. Bunzy, Terry Pratchett, or something else, we can allow stories to guide us and to shape us. When fear and hurt and pain rear their ugly head, urging us to take comfort and power in violence, we can push that away and reach towards each other, no matter our differences. We will never create something perfect, but we have to at least try. Maybe, like Dangerous Beans, we can try very hard to be more than just a rat, or more than just a human. Rats really aren't so different from us, and if rats can think, maybe we should try it too. As Terry Pratchett said, it might be worth a go since we've tried everything else. If it wasn't already abundantly clear, I think that you should read this book. However well I described it here, I promise that the actual book is way better. And let's just say if ever there was a time for people to start reading Terry Pratchett, I think that it should be now. Let me know in the comments what your favorite rodent story is. Mine is obviously this, but I also really like the Tales of Despero when I was little. And rodents make it into a lot of different things, so tell me about your favorite rodent story in the comments. It's always a little bit tough making videos like this about things that I really care about that I know won't necessarily do the best on an algorithmic level, because I need to make videos like this for the sake of my soul, but also for the sake of my business. It's not so great. So it would be really helpful if you could give this video a like and send it to a friend, because that would help me, you know, get the video into the algorithms and stuff. But either way, I'm gonna keep making videos about the stuff that I like, because I get to, because it's my channel. Speaking of my channel, do consider subscribing if you want to tune in to hear me talk about the things that I like to talk about. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and as a message from both me and my uneducated rodents, we hope that you have a very happy, hoppity day.